The Constitutional Convention of 1787. An emerging national consensus for constitutional reform would soon give Madison the chance to present his ideas on a national stage. In 1785, as the individual states struggled against Britain's trade laws, support had grown for an amendment to the Articles of Confederation that would grant Congress new powers over international trade. At Madison's recommendation, a convention met the following September in Annapolis to discuss such an amendment, but only 5 states sent representatives who arrived in time to participate. Although the conference remained brief because of sparse attendance, the conferees suggested that another meeting be held the next year to discuss a wider array of constitutional issues. Congress sat on this recommendation for months. Some observers say that it was ultimately propelled to action only by fears of general unrest stemming from Shays' Rebellion. Whatever the cause, Congress in February 1787 formally called for a new convention in Philadelphia for the sole and express purpose of revising the Articles of Confederation. Madison was one of 55 delegates who attended the convention that began on May 25th. George Washington presided over the convention, and every state except Rhode Island sent a delegation. Seated in a central location from which he could easily hear all members and take detailed notes, Madison was a leading contributor to the discussions. Throughout the debates, he shared the theories he had derived from his extensive study of republics and confederacies, and peppered the debate with arguments he had rehearsed in vices of the political system. Georgia delegate William Pierce described Madison as blending together the profound politician with the scholar, the best informed man of any point in debate. Madison's outsized influence over the convention was further enhanced by his Virginia delegation, which presented a preliminary outline for the new Constitution inspired heavily by Madison's own recommendations. The Virginia Plan, as it became known, dominated early discussions at the convention. The structure of the new government under the Virginia Plan. The Virginia Plan included Madison's proposal for a bicameral Congress, specifying that the American people would elect representatives to the lower house, who in turn would select members from the upper house from candidates nominated by the state legislators. State representation in Congress would be proportional to the quotas of contribution taxes or to the number of free inhabitants. The delegates quickly agreed to the bicameral structure but remained at odds over how to select the members of each house. Some delegates worried about giving the people too much power. According to Elbridge Gerry of Massachusetts, the United States already suffered from an excess of democracy. The people of his home state, he asserted, had been misled into the most baneful measures and opinions by pretended patriots, and these episodes had convinced him of the dangers of too much democracy. Agreeing that the people were unqualified to choose their congressmen, South Carolina's Charles Pinckney proposed that the selection of the lower house be left to the state legislators instead. Supporters of a popularly elected house, meanwhile, were quick to invoke democratic ideals in its defense. It was only just. Virginia's George Mason argued that every class of the people be represented in the government. Madison, responding to Pinckney's proposal, spoke at length on his theory of faction and the virtues of a large republic. He repeated the criticisms of faction-prone state legislators that he had developed in vices. Keeping state politics out of the lower house of Congress, he maintained, would enlarge the sphere, ensuring a greater variety of interests. Ultimately, Madison and his allies prevailed on this issue. Pinckney's proposal was rejected, and control over selecting the lower house was placed in the people's hands. The Senate, as the conferees called the upper house, would be built on less democratic principles. Many delegates envisioned the Senate as the more careful and deliberative house, containing the most distinguished characters, distinguished for their rank in life and their weight of property. Madison predicted that the Senate, given its makeup, would stand as a vital bulwark against tyranny of the majority. Even as American society evolved, in his estimation, in proportion of poor laborers increased over time. In framing a system which we wish to last for ages, we should not lose sight of those changes which ages will produce. An increase in population will of necessity increase the proportion of those who will labor under all the hardships in life, and secretly sigh for a more equal distribution of the blessings.